Oh, well, hello there. I'm so glad you stopped by. I was just about to tell a story about tea. It was a Sunday morning. Sunlight beamed through the open blinds of my bedroom window. As I opened my eyes, I could feel my head pounding from a celebration that I had taken part in the night before. A few of my friends had thrown a party to celebrate one of our close friends coming into town for the weekend. I had a wonderful time. The physical aftermath of the celebration, however, left me feeling drained of both energy and motivation. Thankfully, I had a remedy for the situation. If there was one thing that could bring me out of my diminished state, it was a warm cup of Gordon Smith's Earl Grey tea. Out of relief, I lightly smiled as I slowly pushed myself off of my bed and headed into the kitchen. It's now time for a brief ad. Listeners, do you struggle with foot odor? Foot Squish is a convenient, highly effective foot oxidizer and deodorizer that provides instant and lasting foot aroma that all of your friends and family can enjoy. Each container of Foot Squish is generously packed with 60 squish bars, so you can keep your feet feeling fresh for weeks on end. Now, you're probably thinking, this all sounds great, Jim, but how in the heck does it work? It can't be that easy. Well, I'm delighted to tell you that there is nothing easier. First, place a squish bar on the floor. Next, with a bare foot, slowly step onto the bar with even pressure. As you continue to apply pressure to the squish, the outer layer of the squish bar, which is composed completely of soy, will gradually begin to break apart, slowly expelling the patented squish liquid across the entire surface of the bottom of your foot. Once your foot is flush with the floor, you've successfully squished your squish. The patented squish formula will then absorb into the bottom of your foot, and within seconds, your feet will smell like a bed of roses. With a staggering selection of 300 squish scents, the possibilities are endless. Get fresh. Get Foot Squish. It's now time to return to my story. I was now standing in front of my stove, waiting for the tea kettle to finish heating, with my favorite blue teacup in hand. Inside the teacup sat a bag of Gordon Smith's Earl Grey, just waiting to release its wonderful flavors and nutrients. A few seconds later, the kettle began to whistle. I readily turned off the stove and picked up the kettle. I proceeded to dip the spout of the kettle toward the center of my teacup and watched as the tea bag slowly ascended in the hot water. As I began to dip the tea bag up and down, my eyes became transfixed on what appeared to be a faint but ever-present spot of mold on the outer rim of my teacup. I was immediately concerned. Had this cup been washed thoroughly enough in the last dish cycle? Do I need a new dishwasher? This was the second time in the past week that one of my dishes was only partially cleaned by my dishwasher. The week before, I spotted a piece of hardened cheese on the edge of one of my porcelain plates while attempting to enjoy a homemade spaghetti dinner. I stood in place and continued to stare at the spot of mold for an extended period of time. I took a few deep breaths. A few moments later, I decided to give the edge of the cup a brief but focused scrubbing. I walked over to my kitchen counter and proceeded to tear off 2 squares of paper towel. I then folded the paper towel multiple times to create a substantial wipe. I then turned on the faucet and moistened the folded paper towel with warm water. Once the paper towel was adequately moistened, I wasted no time addressing the problem at hand. I began wiping the edge of the teacup back and forth with controlled force. After a few seconds of wiping, the spot of mold was no longer visible. I let out a relieved sigh and took a small sip of my tea. I stood in place for a moment and glanced out my kitchen window at the sunny morning horizon. Within seconds, I began to feel the energy returning to my body. The dark clouds that loomed over my mind were parting, allowing for the sun to once again provide its warm light. My morning was salvaged, thanks to a single cup of Gordon Smith's Earl Grey. That's the end of my story about tea. To anyone that tuned in, I give you my thanks. Catch me next time on Stories from the River with Jim Magiver.